Hey, Dan.
Hey, Michelle. It's good to see you. We're experiencing our technical difficulties with remote recording today. So
I mean, it's happening early on, so that's good.
that is true. We're at least kind of checking it out, seeing how it's going. And you are in a different location today. I mean, than our normal, sleep takeout studios. Where are you at?
I'm in summer camp, so I'm hanging out in the mountains of North Georgia somewhere, and I do this most every year. But
Uh-huh.
now that we have, I guess, some capabilities, but I really don't have great internet, so I apologize to everybody ahead of time in case things kind of glitch out. And this will be hopefully heavy on the content that you're going to give us today. But I do
I
want
mean,
to
I,
tell
I think.
you, was it
Oh no,
glitching?
I lost
Okay,
your audio.
I do
Keep
want to
going
tell
though. Keep
you,
talking. Maybe it'll pop back in.
I do want
Oh,
to
there
tell
it is.
you,
Now you're back. You're back.
who somebody, I may be glitching, and I guess we keep talking about that, but they gave me camp socks. I'm kind of excited about my camp socks.
Oh, those look awesome. I love those. You got
Yeah,
to bring them back so we can
I'm
kind of see. Maybe
excited.
we should have some sock merch,
Stock merch.
sleep
So
socks, maybe even.
I did decide on like a couple things for our get together walk, but socks are not one of them. But I should look at socks. But I found some nice stuff for traveling and luggage tags and for like the hot, sweaty Florida slash everywhere apparently in this country right now. As we're recording this, it's the end of um like the months in the summer, and we've been going through this whole heat wave in on
Right.
the eastern side of the United States, and it is crazy. Now, heat does not help people sleep.
No, not at all. So I know we chatted about this before we tapped record. You're going to tell us about why some people might want to wear socks to help them fall asleep better.
Yeah, so I think we talked about the history with showering and how a warm shower, letting your body cool down naturally, actually helps you sleep. But there is a fair amount of data that having cold hands or feet can actually make it harder for you to fall asleep. So, I don't know. I mean, think about
Uh-huh.
evolutionarily, there may have been a problem if you did not control your body temperature. It was the extremes of heat, particularly cold. It would be dangerous for you to fall asleep and ignore that. So, being able to put um, either like a blanket or actual socks can be really helpful. And I think the sock idea is very good, whether it's your hands or your feet. If they are cold all the time, it will keep you from falling asleep. Now, if you normally are cold and then you put the blanket on, it's one of those another variable that can happen if you're having sleep problems that the blanket falls off or that you can't kind of get a little cold spot in the blanket. And when you have the socks on your feet, it actually doesn't move. So they're right there. The very short socks,
Okay.
because I've been known to do the short socks, they fall off. And then you're struggling the same idea as with those blankets. So not a too tight, not like a compression sock, but maybe a very fitted sock that goes halfway up the ankle. Maybe a really good way to keep you from having cold feet at night.
Absolutely. So you mentioned, so would you want to, so if you're too warm and you're falling asleep or you're trying to fall asleep, that's not a good combination. But if you're cold and you put on the socks, that would help you fall asleep. Why is that?
So, remember your body's trying to keep its major vital organs very well, circulated. So your core body temperature is going to help your brain tell your brain when things are kind of relaxing, and you send a lot more blood to your gut when you're sleeping. And so when where our heart and our lungs are, they're taken care of because we are already protecting those to begin with. But instead of sending the blood to our big muscles like we would do during, physical exercise when we're awake, we're going to send a lot of that blood flow to the gut. And so the arms and legs tend to get a little bit colder. But you do want to naturally cool down. Naturally cooling down, it means that you're not revving up for some sort of extra, exciting, fun thing to do, like a race or where you're going to require a lot of recruitment of your muscles. So hands and feet tend to be one of the things that gets very cool. But in general, when people are very warm or they send a lot of blood to their skin, it's because their core temperature is warmer to begin with.
Okay. Gotcha.
So
And
in a
so
shower,
it
you're
sounds
you're
like you
actually
were
heating from the outside.
right. And then it's that cool down effect that can be helpful for some people. So, all right. Well, it sounds like socks need to be kind of if you're someone who has colder extremities and you have difficulty falling asleep, socks or maybe even like gloves or something like that could be worth trying out.
Yeah. Anyway,
So,
play
all
play
right,
with
good.
it
I think
because in Florida we tend to be very jaded because we are having to go to extra lengths to cool our body down a lot of the year. But when you're
mhm,
traveling or if you're camping and it's a lot cooler than you're experiencing, the socks could be a really helpful thing to use.
mhm. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, I love these kind of ideas of ways to kind of again help facilitate natural kind of falling asleep. And today we're going to talk about session 4 of CBTI. And we've covered a lot of concepts so far and a lot of episodes. We've even broken this into, several parts, like, part 1 and part 2. Um, and so today, we're going to kind of dive into session 4 of CBTI, which is really a few different kind of components. One is reinforcing, those core kind of stimulus control kind of pieces, which for our listeners and viewers out there, just a quick recap. So number one is, I don't know if you recall it, Michelle, or not. It's okay if not. Um, and because we're doing the remote recording, I think our there's a
I
little bit
can't
of
see your
latency between.
screen. I can't check.
Yeah. No worries. But so number one, we're just going to always make sure that we go to bed when sleepy, not just fatigued or tired. And number two, we're going to, if you're unable to sleep, get out of bed and you return to bed only when you're sleepy. Number three, use your bed and bedroom only for sleep and sex. And number four, wake up at the same time every day, regardless of how much you slept, and try and get out of bed within 10 to 15 minutes. Like really reducing the time in bed not spent asleep is a key goal of kind of CBTI. And then number five, do not nap. So, and we've talked about these in depths in earlier episodes, but definitely kind of want to reinforce for a lot of our listeners and viewers here that those are some of the key pieces. There's more, but those are some of the key pieces of changes. And we're going to start now with talking about relaxation or specifically kind of mindfulness as one approach to kind of really facilitate relaxation. And Michelle, what is mindfulness? Like how would you define it?
So from my standpoint, this is something that comes up a lot when people say, well, like, what is mindfulness? Is this just like paying attention to what I'm doing? When we talk about mindfulness for sleep, it's kind of bringing it back to like the present. And so that's why you'll see a lot of people that when they introduce a concept of mindfulness, they'll do something that you're in control of at that moment. And we use a lot of breath work. So breathing is a very common way that people use mindfulness. Sometimes it's muscle contraction. Some people will do like isolated muscle contraction. But a mindfulness is getting yourself to be in the present moment and not getting your thoughts to go to past, present, and future. So it's not, we were
Mhm.
talking about like the cold feet, that your feet were cold. And so what you did was you put the socks on. So being mindful is, what do your feet feel like right now? Not what they felt like and what you did to change that. And so there's a component, and why the breath is so important is because it changes moment to moment. So you're not relying on, well, it was some way. How am I judging it now? And so it's just being aware of something that is physiologic, so something that you're
Mhm.
in control of, that is going to happen moment to moment, and each time is going to be different. So it's bringing things to the
Yeah.
present from the physiologic.
You got it. And it's, mindfulness and what's kind of interesting about this stuff is, mindfulness has been around for a long time. Like it's nothing new. And for a lot of us, you can be practicing mindfulness and specific aspects of that, through kind of faith-based approaches, through some prayer components really reflect a lot of mindfulness. So can some more ritualistic types of activities. You can be very mindful about very repetitive types of behavior sometimes, I mean, depending on the situation. And, what's really kind of important is that generally speaking, mindfulness really just involves paying attention to the present moment, like what you're experiencing right now. And then the second part of it is really, I think, one of the more powerful components of mindfulness. It's learning to be aware of what you're going through without judging it. So without trying to like label it as either good or bad, happy, sad, all these things. And let me ask you, Michelle, right off the bat, why do you think learning to not judge something can be helpful from an insomnia kind of sleep perspective? Like, what do you think the connection is there?
Yeah, one of the things I was thinking about, just like from a personal standpoint, is sometimes when you kind of have like a judging, it relies on past experience, or it relies on some variables that are not always in your control.
Hmm.
So having it really go based on like that moment, it means that you're not going based on unknowns.
Hmm. You got it. Like you're learning to allow yourself space to experience something without labeling it very quickly. And we know, from some of the research on people that deal with insomnia, is that their minds are really, really quick to go to a negative zone pretty quickly.
Cause or effect.
Bingo, you got it. And so one of the key reasons why mindfulness is so relevant, and I try and spend some time with clients when I'm kind of chatting with them about this. It's not that mindfulness is powerful or magical on its own, but it's that the skill that you're learning of how to experience something and then notice the tendency to judge it and then practice the skill of trying to not judge it or just be aware of that urge. That's the core skill that you're really wanting to apply to your sleep, because we often know that the stress and tension that develops after a bad night's rest is what can really reinforce and make the insomnia kind of keep on showing up, if that kind of makes sense. Um,
Yeah,
and so
I mean, I
that's
really
why.
believe that it's probably is magical for that exact reason.
Mhm. Right, right. Yeah, like it has the opportunity, like when we've done those leaves on the stream exercise, or we've done that mountain one, or we'll do, and there's another episode coming up, we're gonna do some more mindfulness exercises. And and it's not because, we think they're, the only way out there to practice relaxation. There are plenty of ways out there, including, for some of our listeners that are a little bit more kind of psychologically oriented, even some of the original relaxation exercises like a body scan or progressive muscle relaxation. These are variations of very old kind of mindfulness exercises that have been around for quite a long time. So these are not necessarily brand new inventions of things. They're ways that human beings have found to kind of naturally calm themselves for hundreds of years, which is why they can kind of be relevant from a sleep perspective too. So when we talk about mindfulness with regards to sleep, there's really kind of seven kind of key parts of mindfulness that we're going to think about how to apply these to sleep. So the seven are a beginner's mind, like practicing that approach of viewing things from a beginner's mind. The principle of non-striving is number two. Number three is learning how to let go. Four is that non-judging kind of perspective. Five is acceptance. Six is trust. And seven is patience. So we're going to kind of take a little bit of a deep dive into each one of these kind of ideas. And, what's interesting about them is some of these ideas might resonate with you more than others, and that's okay. Our goal is really to help you learn how to do what works for you and to also acknowledge you might need to be flexible to learn that what worked for you on one night might need to be different on night two or night eight, for example. It's that flexibility that's a key kind of takeaway there. What are your thoughts on that, Michelle?
So what immediately comes to mind is, having a wheel of just different options, kind of like that, the emotion wheel, because I think
Hmm.
each of them you could use in different situations depending on what you like. So if you have a refrigerator full of all the foods that you like, it doesn't mean you eat all of them the same day. It means that you try to kind of figure out what's going to work with you on at that moment in that particular realm. So just as an example, if you are dealing with a stressor, let's say it's a family member having a health problem, and that's something that's just kind
Mhm.
of on your mind, it's one of those things is it's not that any of these strategies are going to make that problem go away immediately, but what we're asking you to do, especially when you're training your brain to be able to go to sleep, is not try to solve that problem at that moment. So at least 3 or 4 that you just went over really kind of speak to the, the allowance, the not kind of pushing for an end game. But if
Right.
you're not getting success in one avenue, you have 6 others that you can use, and you may actually
Bingo.
be using a little combination of 2 of them, but just knowing what they are means that you can practice so that when something comes up that doesn't work with one strategy, you can use another strategy.
Yeah. Well, let's dive into each of these kind of 7 pieces. This first one is a beginner's mind. And as this kind of relates to sleep, is that you're learning to remind yourself that each night is a new night. So you're going to be open to try something new, try something different. And that, what you've been doing before, you've tried to make changes to your sleep probably wasn't working so well. So now you can kind of practice something new. And some of those new things might be, I know we've talked about our tired but not sleepy kind of basket of activities. But what do you think about that beginner's mind as it relates to sleep, Michelle?
I really like that, and there's a lot of pushback when people say, "You know what? I tried that. That didn't work," or "I'm coming to you now," or "I'm trying to deal with this other problem, and that's just not going to work this time." It's a really
Mhm.
good point. Is sometimes things that you have tried before at one point, it didn't work at that moment, but introduce it like it's like a new concept, trying it on a new problem.
Mhm. Yep. Absolutely, especially when we think about when we're talking about sleep related changes, I like to tell a lot of my clients in the very beginning that it's gonna take about 3 to 4 weeks of you doing the new thing, the new behavior, consistently
Hmm.
doing it before you're even gonna really feel the change. So, it's a really big disconnect of kind of like a delay between you start doing the right behaviors before you start feeling the improved sleep. Um,
But
and
it's
for those
common.
of our
So
listeners,
when you find yourself,
yeah.
getting to that point, this is really, really common.
Mhm. Absolutely, 100%. Yep. Second principle here, non-striving. So this is that idea that sleep is a process, that you can't force it, but instead you are allowing it to unfold. And so putting more effort into sleeping longer or to sleep better, it's kind of counterproductive. Like, really, we just need to create the right conditions for sleep to blossom on its own rather than, optimizing sleep, which I've had a few clients recently about that. Um, or, what can I do, to make it even better? Like, what are your thoughts on that one, Michelle, of this non-striving idea?
I think it's really hard because a lot of people that are out there that suffer with sleep problems, they really are problem solvers. They're often very productive type A people. And that the more that you try to push something when your body knows how to do it, but the more that you try to
Mhm.
curate it in a very specific way, it backfires on you. So it's really important to again come back to the basics and come back to the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like, this concept of non-striving, I think this speaks specifically to a subset of my clients that come to me because their wearable device has told them that they're not getting enough deep sleep, or some sort of like thing is giving them feedback that somehow their sleep is not ideal. And then they get this in their mind that they're like, oh my gosh, like this is a problem. Um, when in reality, the problem might be just to take off the device. Because
Or you just
for reasons we
use the
talked.
device, but not like be you have it be your master, for example.
Correct. Right. Like it's just one point of data. And we've talked about this before about why wearables, it can be helpful, but it's still an algorithm and they're roughly about 70% accurate. And so there's a
It also
limitation.
changes
I
as you
wish.
get older. They didn't change the
Yeah.
algorithm for age. And there's a lot more deep sleep when people are younger than older. It's kind of
Hmm.
like comparing your skin to a small baby's skin. It's not ever going to be the
Right.
same, even though both of them are performing the function that they're supposed to be functioning in terms of protecting your body and your organs. So we were meant to sleep. So by
Yep.
default already, you were already created with all the tools that can help you sleep. And sometimes your brain kind of gets ahead of things. And so getting back and not striving, not like curating and planning actually helps your sleep a lot. I really love this one, and I think it's a big hang up for people that are already going to have seen a professional over this or more than one, because they just want somebody to tell them like the magic secret sauce or that special pill or the special book, and you already have it
Yeah.
inside of you.
You got it. 100%. Yep. And this next one I think is really relevant too. This one, third concept here, letting go. And this one is really, really important for a lot of our kind of sleep thinkers, because you can learn to attach. So attachment to sleep or your ideal sleep needs usually can lead to some worry about the consequences of those sleeplessness episodes. And so this is counterproductive and inconsistent with your natural process of just letting go of the day and allowing sleep to come. Because, oftentimes a lot of that worry that we think about, and Michelle, I've seen this with clients of ours that will intentionally spend more time in bed not sleeping. Um, there's a really strong belief that I just need to spend more time in bed, even if I'm just going to sit in it and watch TV for several hours. What are your thoughts on that, Michelle?
Or exactly the time in bed is going to magically make more sleep time. It's a really hard thing to let go of some of those predetermined ideas.
Yeah.
We've talked about you kind of hang on to, hey, you said this on, one podcast, or you said this, hey, I tried it, it didn't work this time. So all of a sudden now it's a non-issue. But
Hmm.
often if you revisit again, whether it's the beginner's mind or this letting go, is really kind of come back. It's not the same as it was before. And bad habits don't improve people's sleep. Sometimes they
Yep.
work periodically, and all of a sudden you say, oh, well, that was a non-issue, but they really don't.
Right. You got it. Bingo. And this next one is really relevant to that one. This one kind of picks up too with that mindfulness exercise we did a few episodes back of the leaves on a stream. But this is that non judging. And the reason why this is super relevant to sleep is it's really easy to automatically judge the state of you being awake as a negative or an aversive thing, especially if you have not slept well for several nights. However, that kind of negative energy can also interfere with you getting back to sleep. So, what's really kind of relevant and to kind of think about is, what if I were just to observe myself of being awake, and then just like that leaf on a stream, you just put it on that leaf and you just watch it float on by, um, instead of automatically saying, "Well, yep, I'm awake again." That's a bad thing. So that non-judgment is a key part of that. Um, Number 5 here, acceptance. This one's relevant. This is kind of recognizing and accepting that your current, state of your sleep, it's an important first step in choosing how you're going to respond. So if you can accept that you're not, sleepy at this moment and that sleep is not likely to come anytime soon, then why not get out of bed and go do your tired but not sleepy activities? Or why not do these other things instead of going to bed several hours early and hoping that you're going to get rest? And so that's really where acceptance is, just honestly identifying, yeah, my sleep is in a tough spot right now, versus holding on to the idea that I have to do what I think is best to get that better sleep. What do you think about that one, Michelle?
I think this is a really hard one, particularly for adults, is just understanding people get in different spots, and they get into different have like behaviors and habits, and they somehow want to
Hmm.
explain them. And it does. A lot of these things don't need explanation. But if you find yourself rationalizing that explanation, come back to no, just accept it. Like I'm not sleeping. I'm not where I wanted to be. So like, where am I? And that's again coming back
Right.
to that mindful component is where am I? I can
Mhm.
move my hands. I can move my toes. I'm not being chased. There's a lot of positives, but we do tend to focus on some of these negative elements, and then it takes us down
Mhm.
a different rabbit hole. So acceptance is a really
Oh,
hard
yeah.
a hard one.
It is. I think it's because it's one of the most active, non-active types of things. Like, you have to intentionally say, "Yeah, this is where I'm at, and I'm going to try to pause my natural," and motivational interviewing is called the writing reflex, or the tendency to want to do something in response to it. And you're learning how to kind of really challenge your own writing reflex and just say, "Yep, this is where my sleep is at in the moment," which really lends itself to the next one here, which is trust. And this one is that you're learning to trust that your sleep system is functioning and you're letting it work for you. And you can trust your mind and body that they can self regulate and self correct for sleep loss. And this is really important because knowing that that short consolidations of sleep often feel more satisfying than longer periods of very fragmented sleep can really help you to kind of develop that better understanding of your sleep system, meaning that you don't need 10 hours in bed if you're only getting 5 of that of actual sleep. What you need is 5.5-ish hours in bed and 5 of that of actually being sleep, if that makes sense. So,
Yeah, and it's important not to generalize that that's like an every night thing because it does become scary. Oh, what do you mean? I'm only going to be getting 5 hours of sleep at night, and that's normal. But no, some nights that's exactly what you need. So, it's an
mhm.
important lesson that you have to learn.
Yep, absolutely. And then the last one here, number 7, patience. This is learning to be patient with yourself. And, it's also learning to be kind of calm and flexible with yourself when you've had periods of good sleep and then a new period of bad sleep pops up again, because it's unlikely that both the quality and the quantity of your sleep are going to be optimal right away. But as you make these changes over time, you'll learn to get into a better spot. And then an important realization too. There's going to be future things that are going to knock you out of that sleep equilibrium place. And why is it so important to acknowledge these future disruptions, Michelle? Like, why is that a key thing?
I mean, it brings it back to the fact that you can't curate everything really at that moment, but also it brings you back to the mindful component of you can't predict the next 15 ones that are going to be happening.
Mhm.
So,
You got it. And it's learning that flexibility with your sleep that's super, super relevant. So just to recap from a relaxation slash mindfulness perspective, we got beginner's mind, we've got non-striving, we got letting go, we've got non-judging, acceptance, trust, and patience. All kind of key concepts to help reinforce, everything that we've already talked about with, CBT for insomnia, but we're also kind of reinforcing that piece that you really are the best person who is going to be able to calm yourself, your nervous system, your mind, your body, and you've got to be the one to take those actions to do that. So,
and you probably already
all
figured
right.
out that this works not just for sleep. This works for a
Uh,
lot of other
yes.
things as well. And so being able to practice it in areas of your life where you don't feel like you have an issue, that can really reinforce the being able to use the technique in the problem area that you have, which if you're listening to this podcast or you're learning about sleep, might be sleep at that moment. So
Mhm.
be patient with yourself. I use the analogy: treat yourself like you're parenting yourself at that moment, and really try to have a lot of grace that goes along with some of these techniques. When you catch yourself getting
Oh,
into one of
yeah.
the bad thought behaviors, just hit reset. Just recognize and reset.
Mhm.
So,
Absolutely. Like, yeah, I
you
know we've
know,
had these conversations yeah.
it made me think about it when we were talking, because a lot of people, when we talk about what we do together, you and I on this podcast, there's a
Uh-huh.
whole different subgroup of the people that will see me but won't see you, and then the people that will see
Uh-huh.
you and not see me. And it's important to
Right.
recognize that at the end of the day, we all want to be the best sleepers that we can be. And people have different ways to
Mhm.
go about doing this. And this is not necessarily them right at that moment. Maybe it's the history that they've had, or maybe it's something that's worked for them in the past. And so remind yourself to use all these different avenues. But as we've mentioned before, sleep is one of those things that no matter what magic pill comes out or what special product comes out, our human bodies were meant to sleep at night. Okay. We weren't meant to
Mhm.
sleep a set amount of hours, but how we've navigated into this whole world of everything, we've navigated into there's something wrong with me and I need someone to fix it for me. And we're trying to just give you those tools and like take it out of like a a clinical setting, because in many situations when you can remove that like I'm bad or I'm broken phenomenon, and when you're just using it as more training, this can be very helpful. Now, it doesn't mean that there's not a role for individual therapy and individual like medical care, because there's a lot of overlapping factors. But when you come into either one of our settings, and you've at least really navigated some of these things, it will really make everything work better.
Mhm. Absolutely. 100%. Like,
That's
it's
the plug for
there's
putting
usually
us out of
more
business. That's what we want.
absolutely. Well, Michelle, it was great seeing you. I'm glad we're able to do this recording remotely. I know you're at camp. I know you gotta get back to camp. So, um,
Yeah, sorry
thanks
about all
again
the
for
glitching, but it'll be good. You're gonna have
it
to work
will. It
on
will.
correcting some of this.
We'll do some editing behind the scenes. Maybe the AI can fix part of it, but whatever. This was good content. So,
It's good
all
to
right. Well,
see
until
you.
next time, Sleep Nation. All right. We're saying goodbye. Bye bye.